There's a lot of controversy throughout the net about God or evolution. One point of view could be, though, unless you don't understand evolution, you can't actually understand God. Because without God, maybe there's no evolution. Without evolution, there's no evidence of God. Because people, I suspect, that don't understand evolution call those that do atheists. But what is an atheist? Someone who doesn't believe someone believes in God? What is an atheist? Someone who's not sure of what anything is. Because no one can prove anyone believes anything. I read a passage from a small book I wrote a few years ago called One Law and the Challenge of Eve, which tries to explain the relationship between the sayings of Jesus and what they may mean in a rational context. Instead of saying, "Thou shalt not." Well, why thou? Why shalt thou not? Because God said so. But that's not got anyone anywhere, has it, yet? Because there are so many different versions of a God, what it stands for, the argument about it or against it or whatever can never, ever be finalized. It seems to me, though, that what God is mainly about, and to those people who call themselves Christians, and many of them, it's about death. They always say, "Oh, well, wait till Jesus comes, he's going to punish all the people and destroy them all because they're not with God." Well, that seems to me a very great contradiction in what Christianity is, if Christianity was based in what Jesus was. Now, Jesus was about life. If you're saying Jesus is going to come down and smite all those dead and choose his children and take just to choose his children up to heaven or whatever, the chosen ones, well, all who is to choose? Jesus will choose. These people are self-selecting. They're self-selecting that they are the ones that Jesus will choose. How do they choose themselves as the one that Jesus would choose? They all nod in sycophantic agreement with what? What's in the Bible? But what's in the Bible, is that what Jesus was? Was Jesus a Christian? That is a question. That is a question. Was Jesus a Christian? Well, you're supposed to be a Christian if you follow Jesus. But following what? Exactly. How are people following? What is the Word of God when there are so many different interpretations of it? I want to read a small part of the book I wrote. It's called Evolution and God. It must therefore be true, this then is then directly responsible for the intelligence that is in the human being, whether it is in a man or woman. Even the trees know when to shed their leaves. So intelligence is in everything. Then if we admit that we exist in a forever fluctuating climate and an unpredictable and evolving environment that develops from that, and we gain the insight that tells us all other parts of existence are merely subjects to the waves and whims in the ever-evolving weave. These are the patterns of the forces that are our universe which are undeniable. If these are part and parcel of God and the intrinsic intelligence of God, or evidence of, it then may be argued the actuality of the expansion from the expression of energy that are the influence for change, that have the effect of creating incrementally and subatomically evolutions, the next stage of cooperacies, are the direct result of these. Cooperacy is the act of evolution, and cooperacy is the intelligent accumulation of wisdom and knowledge in the living force which keeps it continuing through different extinction events. To deny extinction events, which many people do, like massive colossal ice ages or meteoric comet impacts and those things, is to deny what is basically scientific evidence and that exists all over the world. It is then obvious that complex evolution is part and parcel of the evidence of the accumulated chemical memory in the design, in the intelligent design. Otherwise, all would remain as nothing, or all would have been chaos and remain chaos, which is chaos, but at the same time nothing. That is anything other than chaos. Therefore, to deny evolution is to believe in nothing or chaos, and therefore deny evolution is part of God. To deny the intelligence in the design of God is simply to insult any God involved. It doesn't matter which God you choose, Anunnaki or whatever you want to call these gods. To suggest they were so dumb they couldn't create a creature or that couldn't adapt to the future is surely an insult to God. An adaptation is not just a mutation, a physical mutation, it's a cultural change, what adapts to the different environmental changes. Evolution is not simply a thing what changes a species from one species to another. It's a thing what changes culture from one thing to another. That all is organic. There's no separation in the organics. It's all a spiritual journey of the intrinsic intelligence in the soul. We humans have an intelligent choice. Either we continue the existence in the chaotic, or we evolve through insightful, impartial, cooperating system within the changing paradigm, within the matrix. Those societies that have evolved their philosophies so that the cultures they live in have less suffering can be said to have at some time evolved their political culture more or less through a more impartial cooperacy. And that is to say that it doesn't matter whether a society believes in God or not, its actions towards its people are far more important. If society believes in God and that causes mass killings and death and bombings and all that, well, that's a very holy thing to do, I suppose, to die and kill in the name of God. But surely interact peacefully and productively for the name of people, surely that's equally in the name of God, whether people believe it or not. To a God, it's irrelevant whether people believe in the God. It's only important to people and priests and leaders what people believe in. Then they can control them. It's a controlling of people, it's an oppression against the living force in people. And that's the bit what causes wars and terrorism and all the other things. The oppression of people, the oppression of the spirit and soul in man and woman is the intrinsic cause of problems in the world. It is the single evidential fact of the unique simplicity of the original intelligent potential in the pattern that is an indication of evidence of the wisdom in the design, and it is the code law that is the basis of this pattern, by the admittance of the fact of its intrinsic intelligence. So therefore it is a living purpose, and religions claim God was the originator of this. Then religions must admit God was the originator of living purpose. Therefore religions must admit the fact of evolution if they insist intelligence as being the instigator behind life's purpose. To deny this is to deny God and be anti-God. The force, if there's a God, and I don't deny either way, I can't say I know. What I don't know, though, is that people who say, I believe, I don't know what they believe in. And they can't prove they believe. No one proves they can believe anything. If killing other people and dying for something from a politician or a priest proves that there's a God, well, God help us. If dying, it seems to me that the way the priests and the politicians use God is to eliminate populations. It's a population control. Go and have a great big war. Kill all the young men. Far too many of them. They might become a danger to politicians, so let's have a war. So what is God? It's very much an individual thing. To deny it's not an individual thing, it doesn't make any sense. And to say someone is closer to a God than anyone else, that's rather arrogant. Oh, no matter who they are or what station they are, how someone can be closer to the life source or force than another doesn't make any sense. It's saying it's a height of vanity, arrogance and ignorance to say someone is closer to the God than anyone else or anything else. If God made all the creatures and all the humans and everything else in the universe, then God is equally close to all his creations as any one of them. He created everything. How people act is in the name of people, not in the name of God. If you want to use the name of God to do acts of evil, or whatever acts of good, that's just taking tickets on yourself. If people do acts of evil, they do acts of evil for their own, something intrinsically wrong with them. If they do acts of good, it's something intrinsically good in them. It's that simple. How is it judged? How can anyone judge it after thousands of years of chaos caused in the name of God, millions of deaths, all caused in the name of God or no God? Who's to say what God is? And who's to say that evolution is not an act of God? Because if you can't evolve, can't change and adapt, we're just in a stasis. Maybe there's a denial of evolution itself, which is the problem. Because if you know what evolution is, and that is, it's just a simple transference of information through the generations, as within environmental forces that changes us, so we have to adapt to the paradigm changes, the niche changes, and that's all it is. It's not a great mystery. They don't want people to know what it means, because I think they're evil and they're denying God. Anyway, evolution or God is evolution. He created evolution. There's more than one way of looking at life, and to say there's only one way of looking at life, how it all came about, that's the cause of all wars. I'm all for peace. I live for life. I love and worship life because God created life. Men, in the name of power, create death.